to me. Here's what I want to talk to you tonight. I want to talk to you tonight about how you can live your life in the way that God intended you. So if I'm sitting in the seat, and maybe you're like, the first time here, maybe you've been coming here a long time, and you're like, dude, maybe you're thinking, I've heard the entire Bible. Or maybe you're thinking, I'm not even a fan of the Bible. Like, Chip, why? What is it that you want to say? Why do you want to say this to us tonight? Well, here's what I want to communicate to you. I believe that your life can be better than where it is right now. I believe that you can be happier than you are right now. I believe that everybody in the back of their head is thinking, there's got to be more to life. There's got to be more happiness than this. I've got to feel like that my life makes more sense, that it matters more than it does right now. If someone would just teach me, if someone would just show me how I can live my life to make a difference, how I can live my life so that I count, so that my life matters. Man, if someone would just show me what the purpose of all of life is, man, then I would do that. I believe the answer to that question is in God's Word. And I believe if we, as a student ministry, live what I'm about to teach you tonight, that God would change our lives, our families, our future families, and this entire area, our community, forever. God has left us instructions on how to live, and I've already read it to you. See, here's what I believe. I believe, and we've talked a lot about this already, man, when we live life for ourselves, when I live life for me, it makes me miserable. When I live life for me, I'm always left disappointed. But when I live life the way that God has created me to live life, like a fish. When fish don't do what they're supposed to do and they get out of water, they die. When a train gets off of its track and it's not riding on the track that it was made to run on, it doesn't go anywhere. When we try to live life in a different way than God intended for us, we don't get to experience life the way that it was intended for us. We don't go anywhere. And man, I don't know about you, but I want my life to count. I want my life to matter. I want to feel like that I am being useful. I don't want to live life for me. I want to make a difference in other people. I want to leave my mark on this world, and I want to do it all for the glory of God. And I believe that this passage shows us how to do that tonight. So we're talking a little bit more about what's called missional living. Now, you might be wondering, what does missional living mean? Well, I've got a short definition that we went through this last Sunday morning, and it just simply says this. Missional living is living in a way every day that someone could get saved. Missional living is living missionally, is living in a way every day that someone could get saved. If someone was watching your life, would they know what it looks like and what it means? A life that is lived for Jesus? If someone was watching your life, would they say, now that person's different? Now that person knows what's up. Now that person's got it. That's the life that I would love to have. Man, that person is so happy. That person gets along with so many other people. That person is at peace. Man, that person, you can just tell that they love God. And would you be the person that if God ever worked in somebody else's life, that they would run up to you and say, you obviously have God in your life. Would you please share with me how I can give my life to God? Would you please tell me how I can know Him? Would you please just help me to experience, help me to invite Him into my life? Are you living the kind of life that someone would come up to you and say, you obviously know the Lord, you obviously know Jesus, would you tell me more? what I'm going to share tonight is when we obey these things, when we live in these ways, people will know about our relationship with Jesus. See, there was a time that I was in another country by the name of Belize. You'll see one picture about Belize up here. Go and throw that up there for me, Kevin. Here's the streets of Belize. It's one of the coolest countries I've ever been in, man. It was incredible, right? We got to meet a lot of great people. This next picture is a little Belizean girl. Her name was Liza, right? So there's little Liza with her bunny rabbit. You know, she was just so cute. I was like, I got to get your picture. And by the way, everybody pray for Liza. I don't know where she's at or what she's doing, but I pray that that little girl would know Jesus. And so if you go to the next picture for me, so our mission, it's not a great picture on these screens, but our mission is we were in this church, and man, there's about 100 kids who would come to our vacation Bible school every day that we would get to tell them about Jesus. And our hope that if we can tell these little kids about Jesus, and if they can give their lives to Jesus, and then God is faithful to them through their life, and then one day when they're married, and they're a husband or a wife, and then they get to be a mom or a dad, then they get to raise their kids up so that they can love Jesus, because we just want to play a small part in this big world to make it more about God, right? So I remember I was in Belize, and I was preaching in Belize. And I remember I was preaching to their church, like all the adults, right? And I was preaching, and I was telling them, like, hey, guys, we're about to leave. Like, we're about to jump on a plane, and we're about to fly back to Alabama in the United States. And I told them, before we leave, I want you to know how to keep the mission trip going when we're no longer here. And now think about this with me. While I was preaching, it hit me. What I'm asking them to do, to live missionally in their area, is not what I was asking my teenagers to do. We had trained our teenagers for all these mission trips, which are awesome. I believe in mission trips. We were training our teenagers for all these mission trips, but we were not training them how to live missionally in our area at the time. And I don't want to be guilty of that here. I don't think we just need to come in this building on Wednesday nights or on Sunday mornings and put on our church face and play our church game and be here with our church squad so that we're looking strong. And so we come in, but when we leave, our lives are not changed and we're not living for Jesus or looking like Him. I believe that God has called us to more. Man, I don't know about you, but I love being in church. Man, I love the fun. I love the peace. I love the love that everyone has to offer. I love being friends with y'all. Man, I love it. But I don't want it to just be Wednesday nights and Sundays. Man, I want that feeling all the time. And so I want to live for Jesus all the time. So here is how He said to do it. Look with me at Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2, man, this is so important. We're not going to take long. Philippians chapter 2, starting with verse 12. Starting with verse 12. Here we go. Here's what he says. He says, therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only in my presence, think about this, I'm going to explain it, but even much more so in my absence, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and to work for His own good pleasure. The first thing that I see, and by the way, man, y'all are doing such a great job listening. I can tell you're tuned in. I can tell, man, you want to hear from the Lord tonight. I can tell that you're expectant. God, give us a word tonight. God, give me a word for my life tonight. That's huge. When we come expectant, God always delivers, right? So the first thing, it was already on the screen, missional living, our missional living is lit up by Christ-like actions. Our missional living is lit up by Christ-like actions. Here's what he just said. He said, you know what? I came to your town. I came to your city. And here's what normally happens. Paul is writing this, and Paul is saying, I'm a missionary. And normally what happens when I go to somebody's town, when I go to somebody's city, everybody just kind of straightens up. And everybody's on their best behavior. And man, it's like everybody just automatically starts living for God because he's this big bad missionary that's traveling around from city to city. And he says, it's amazing how when I come into town, man, everybody wants to live that changed life. But he says, then when I leave, what happens is is that everybody starts living back the way that they were living before, not living for Jesus. But he said to the people in Philippi that he wrote the book of Philippians to, he said, but you're different. Y'all, I want you to know that I've been in a lot of student ministries. I've literally gotten to preach a lot over the world and a lot of the nation. Look at me. I want you to know that you are different. And I believe that. I believe that there is a spiritual hunger in this room. I believe that there is a desire to know God more deeply. I believe that you have a heart to want to reach your friends for Jesus. And man, I believe that we're only scratching the surface of what God can do through us. And Paul said to these people, now that I've left, I'm getting reports about you. I'm not even there. And Paul said, you're obeying even more now that I'm gone than when I was there. Here's what he's saying. The Christian faith for you is not about me. Paul's saying the Christian faith for this church, for the church in Philippi, he's saying, man, it's not about who's watching. It's knowing that God is present. And Paul is saying, you know that you really are a Christian. You know that you really have been saved by the way that you live when no one is watching. You know that God has really changed your life and that you've been forgiven of your sin and you've begun a relationship with Him when you are with a set of friends and your parents are not around or your authority is not around or your pastor is not around. And even though you're not perfect, you really do seek to do the right thing for Jesus Christ. Paul is saying, you're the real deal. Paul is saying, you are legit when you leave the church house and you continue to live for Jesus Christ as your God. And so he says, listen, I want you to know that's awesome. And so he takes him to the next step about living, missional living, being lit up by your actions. Here's what he says. So here's what I want you to do. He says, I want you to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Think about this. This passage freaked me out for a long time. This passage literally scared me. That verse scared me. Because I thought what Paul was saying was that I had to work for my salvation. Meaning, I've got to do the right thing for God to love me. Meaning, I've got to do the right thing for God to save me. That I had to work for my salvation. But that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, God has already put salvation in you. If you have said, God, I'm a sinner, and I believe that Jesus died for my sin, God, I want to be forgiven of my sin. I believe that Jesus rose from the dead. God, I want to live my life for Him. God, would you have Jesus come into my life as my Lord, my leader, my master, my God? He says, when we have done that with Jesus and Jesus has come into our life, then all we need to do is work out our salvation. Salvation is in us. We get to, you ready for this? We get to work from our salvation. We get to live out what is already inside of us. We're living out what's already inside of us. And here's what he says. For it is God who works in you. This is verse 13. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do, both to will and to work according to His good pleasure. You know what that means? When we live Christ-like attitudes in our life, we can't take any credit for it. We cannot get the glory from it. We cannot think that we're anyone good or great or special or spiritual. He says it is God who is working in you both to will. That word will means God is the one who even gives you a desire to do the right thing. Y'all, we don't even have within us the desire to do the right thing. We're sinners. If you even have the desire to do the right thing, that is God in you. He says it's God who wills it in us. He gives us the desire, and He's the one that works it out of us for His own good pleasure. Man, if I do something in a Christ-like way, if I do something, man, that is biblical, it is spiritual, it is like Jesus, it is for Jesus, I know that that is God working in me because I cannot do anything good. So number one, I want you to know that our missional living or living missionally is lit up by our Christ-like actions. Here's what that means. People will know that you are for real about Jesus when they watch your life and they see that you want to be like Jesus. People will know that you're for real about Jesus when they watch your life and they see that you are like Jesus. Do you live in a way that is like Jesus Christ? Just like, think about it this way, just like we dove into the Caribbean Sea, and man, that water was lit up around us. We had to move around. We had to act for that water to light up. In the same way, if we want Jesus, who is the light of the world, to light up within us so that other people can see him through us, we have got to have Christ-like actions. We've got to move. We've got to act. We've got to do. Man, we've got to show them how Jesus has changed our life, so that they can come to us and say, how do I give my life to Jesus? And then secondly, real quick and we're done, missional living is lit up by Christ-like attitudes. Not just actions, but also Christ-like attitudes. Look at verse 14. Paul says this, do all things without grumbling or disputing. Do all things without grumbling or disputing. Think about this with me. When we live a life of grumbling, of complaining, of whining, we are showing people with our attitude that God is not good because he has not given us what we need to make us happy. So when we live a life of complaining and grumbling and whining, we are showing people that God is not good. When we are living a life, he says, of disputing, which means arguing with one another. When we live a life that we're constantly arguing with each other, then we are showing people that God is not all loving. And so why would they want our God who's not good? And why would they want our God who's not loving as they're watching us live our life in such of a way that we're grumbling or complaining? We're grumbling and we're arguing. What if we were called, instead to be complainers, we were called to be thankful? What if instead of arguing all the time, we were called to love people and to actually have friendships of peace with them? That we're not to complain, he says, do all things without grumbling or disputing. Those are big words. I remember one time when I was in college, I had a Toyota 4Runner. You can go and put this up here. This is actually not the picture of my truck, but it was like my truck, okay? Anybody ever been mud riding before? Raise your hand if you've ever been mud riding, you ever been mudding? Anybody want to go mudding? You never have. Raise your hand, okay. Any rednecks in the room say, yeehaw. Okay, so, yeah, that's right, okay. So, I grew up kind of a redneck, right? I grew up a redneck, and I had a Toyota 4Runner that looked just like this. It's actually blue. It wasn't jacked up quite as high, but four-wheel drive. Dude, I loved my Toyota 4Runner. There was one day that me and some friends were driving throughout this field, and as we're driving throughout this field, we turned this corner, and we found the most perfect, beautiful, glorious mud pit that we have ever seen in our lives, right? I mean, we're like, oh, I mean, it was incredible, right? It was like, man, it would make you sing. And the angels came out. It was like, this is, the God's glory shining down on this mud. It was perfect. And so, dude, we rode through this mud pit all day. I almost flipped my truck, right? We got it on video. We would go back to our friend dorm rooms. We'd bring our friends back out, and we'd trucking people in, man, be mud riding all day long. And I remember that, man, my truck was mudded up like this, but even thicker, even browner, like all around. Man, it was the front, the back, the sides, the top, underneath. Everything was mudded out, and I didn't think about it. And I rode around that night without thinking about it, and unlike this truck, there was about an inch thick of mud on my headlights. And I'm thinking, I can't see anything. thinking there's something wrong with my eyes, right? There's something wrong with my headlights, or something's going on. So I throw it in park in the middle of the road, and I run out and I look at my headlights, and I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. My headlights are mudded up. That's why I can't see anything. And that's what complaining and arguing does to the light of Jesus Christ in our lives. We get complaining and arguing, muds up, dirties up the light of Jesus Christ, where people cannot see Jesus within us. See, check it out. Isn't it amazing that Jesus lived with godly actions his entire life? Isn't it amazing that everything that Jesus did, every single one of his actions for 33 years was perfectly godly? Isn't that crazy? Like, Jesus never sinned, not even once. And not only did Jesus never sin, but Jesus also, when he went to the cross and he died for all of the ways, think about this, all of the ways that you and I lived in un-Christ-like ways. All of our un-Christ-like actions. All of our un-Christ-like attitudes. But when Jesus died for those things, we know that he did not stay dead. Jesus rose from the dead, to where you might be thinking, Chip, I cannot do what the Bible's asking me to do. That's the problem. Chip, I cannot live the way the Bible's asking me to live. I've tried. I want you to know, you're right. Neither can I. But the one who had perfect actions, the one who had perfect attitudes, is the one who died for us, is the one who rose from the dead, and is the one who wants to not just live inside us, but live through us, so that we get to shine the light of Jesus Christ into this world. That's why the last verse says, verse 15, when we show our Christ-like actions and attitudes, check it out, verse 15, then we will be blameless and innocent, children of God, without blemish, in the midst of this crooked and twisted generation, among whom we shine as lights in the world. I remember one time I was on a mission trip to San Diego. We met this little boy by the name of Elijah. Can we put Elijah's picture up here, please? We met this little boy by the name of Elijah. Here's Elijah right here. This is the last day of our mission trip. This is when we were doing Vacation Bible School in San Diego. Elijah came on the very first day. He came every day. Think about this. He came every day for Vacation Bible School. The first day he came, and all he did is he ran to the snack station, started eating all the other little kids' snacks. That's all he wanted to do, man. Elijah just came hungry, right? All he wanted to do was eat snacks. Like, the dude was a snack kleptomaniac. Like, he just stole people's snacks. Criminal, right? He just stole people's snacks all day long. And all he wanted to do was play games. That's all he wanted to do. Elijah, it's time for Bible. I don't want the Bible. I want to play games and eat snacks, right? And so every day Elijah was like that. And we're like, oh my gosh, here comes Elijah, right? Dude was a handful until the last day. I'll never forget the last day. Elijah came to Vacation Bible School. We didn't do anything different. God just, seriously, y'all, I didn't think there was any way that Elijah would ever give his life to Jesus. He did not care about Jesus. The last day, we didn't change anything. We gave the kids snacks. We played games with Elijah, and we told him about Jesus. And God got a hold of his heart, and he gave his life to Jesus that day. Now wait. Not yet. Hold up, listen. Listen. Not only did Elijah give his life to Jesus, we gave Elijah his very first Bible. Now check it out. I'm not playing with you. Elijah is reading his Bible during snack time. We told Elijah, hey, you want to come to snack time? He said, nope, I'm reading my new Bible. Elijah, you want to go play games? Nope, I'm reading my new Bible. It was the last day of Vacation Bible School. We had like our closing ceremonies. We had 150 kids out there in San Diego. While they were doing their songs and stuff, Elijah came and tugged on my shirt, and he said, "Hey, Pastor Chip, could I say something to everybody?" I said, "Sure, Elijah." So when it became time, I said, "Y'all," I didn't even know what he was going to say. I said, "Y'all, Elijah wants to say something." He said, "Guys, I want you to know, 7 years old. The Vacation Bible School went up to 12 years old. We had all these teenagers out there that were doing this mission trip and all these parents standing up. Elijah had given his life to Jesus that day, had gotten his very first Bible. He had never seen a Bible in his life." Elijah stood up in front of everybody and said, "Hey guys, I need you to know something. Hey everybody, Jesus' mommy's name was Mary." Elijah said, Jesus' mommy's name was Mary, and Mary was a virgin. He didn't know what that meant. Mary was a virgin. Hey, and he said, everybody, you know what else I learned in my Bible? My Bible says that Mary was pregnant with Jesus, and she couldn't find no hotel. There wasn't any hotel around. Mary, man, her and this dude, her boyfriend Joseph, they went to a barn. And Jesus was born in a barn. Like, he was excited, right? This was the first time he had ever heard this stuff in his life. He was so excited, man. Elijah got saved that day, got his first Bible that day, and preached his first sermon that day. How cool is that? How cool is that? Yo, I can't even make that up. There was another kid that got saved that same week. His name was Christian. Listen up. Listen up. Christian had never been to church in his life. Shh. Christian had never been to church in his life. Christian came to our Vacation Bible School week, gave his life to Jesus, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think I ever met him. I don't think I ever saw him. I'm not sure if I ever had a conversation with him, but I know he gave his life to Jesus. Let me tell you why. In San Diego, California. Because I got a call a year later from the pastor in that area, and he said, "Hey, Chip, I want you to know that there was a kid named Christian who was a part of your Vacation Bible School in San Diego who gave his life to Jesus." He said last week he was in Hawaii on a vacation with his parents, and they were riding up the coastline, and they were looking over the cliffs to the Pacific Ocean and all this kind of stuff, and they had gotten out of the car to look over this cliff, and Christian just took off running. And he meant to skid to a stop, but he lost his footing, and he fell off a 200-foot cliff, and his parents watched him plummet all the way to the ground and died instantly. And he said, "Chip, we don't even remember Christian. Christian's parents have never been to our church. But they said that Christian's life was so changed after that Vacation Bible School. Christian was so different. He kept telling his parents about Jesus, telling his parents about Jesus, telling his parents about Jesus, that when he died, they had to find the church that spoke into Christian's life to where he gave his life to Jesus Christ. And that pastor got to witness to Christian's parents and tell them about Jesus Christ. And here's what I want to say. Don't ever think that God can't save anyone. Don't ever think that someone's too far gone for Jesus. I'm telling you, if Jesus can save Elijah, he can save anybody. If Jesus can save Christian, he can save anybody. We do not know when people's lives will come to an end. But we have right now to tell them about Jesus. Are we living our life for sports? Are we living our life for video games? Are we living our life for boyfriends and girlfriends? Are we living our life for just education, for just fun? Or are we living our life for what makes a difference forever? Here's the last thing I want to tell you. If you really want to have Christ-like actions in your life, the number one action I want you to think about up here is serving. If you really want to have a Christ-like action in your life, hey guys, listen to me over here. Y'all look at me. If you really want to have a Christ-like action in your life, the number one thing you can do for people is you can serve them. Here's what I believe. Jesus served us before he saved us. Jesus served us before he saved us. If you're like, man, there's so many actions, Pastor Chip, where do I start? Here's where I want you to start. Just by serving people, because, man, you are never more like Jesus than when you're serving others. And if you're really wondering, like, what kind of Christ-like attitude do I need to have? The number one Christ-like attitude you'll see on the screen is humility. Just where life is, and by the way, humility is not looking down on yourself. Humility is looking up to Jesus. It's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. It's thinking of Jesus more. Everybody look at me. The reason that Liberty Students exists is so that we can share Jesus with you, so that you can share Jesus with others. If we are not serious about sharing Jesus, let's shut the doors and be done with this. There are 1.7 million people in the Hampton Roads area. And we know that the majority of them have not given their life to Jesus. We have a huge school, Bethel High School, right here. We know that Phoebus is just down the road. We know that Kickotan, where I was at this Tuesday watching basketball, man, there's a ton of students there. We know there's all kind of schools in Yorktown, man, all kind of schools in Newport News, man, all kind of private schools, public schools, home schools. Everybody needs Jesus. Look at me. 2016 has got to be the year where it's not just us in this room, that we are living in Christ-like ways, with Christ-like actions, and with Christ-like attitudes. And I want to challenge you to jump in. I want to challenge you that your actions would light up your life and that your attitude would light up your life so that people can see the light of Jesus Christ so they will give their life to him. Because you know what's worse than people going to hell? You know what's worse than people going to hell? People not living for the glory of Jesus who created them. Let's bow our heads in prayer. This whole month, as you know, this whole month is about living missionally, man, that we need to be like missionaries. In this whole month, I just want to encourage you. Your life matters. You're making a difference. You are influencing people one way or the other. It is either to Jesus or away from Jesus. And I believe that you are different. I believe that this is a student ministry who can and will and is making a huge difference in people's lives. And I want to encourage you, and I want to instruct you and to say, listen, let's do this thing together. Right? Let's reach people together. Let's live like Jesus together. Let's tell people about Jesus together. Whatever it is that you are living your life for, if it's not Jesus, I can promise you, it is not even close to comparing what it feels like and what it is like to experience your life with Jesus. With nobody looking around right now, every head bowed, and every eye closed, just a question for you guys. My question is, man, how many of you here tonight, you say you're a Christian, you're a believer, but you know people who are around you. And it doesn't matter if you're homeschool, Christian school, private school, public school, out of school, or whatever's going on. It don't matter who that is. I'm asking you, you know people around you. You see people every day. Man, God is putting their faces in your mind right now. God is giving you their names right now that you know that if you're not sharing Jesus with them, probably no one else is. You know that God is calling you to share Jesus with somebody, to live in such of a way every day that someone could get saved. If you know who that person or those people are, would you raise your hand right now? Pastor Chip, I know. If you want to lead people to Jesus, raise your hand right now. Pastor Chip, that's me. I want to have that life. I want to lead people to Jesus. Raise your hand right now. Hands up, man. Don't be ashamed. Hands up right now. I want to lead, and I want you to pray right now with your hand up to God. Right now with your hand up to God. God, this is me. God, I'm yours. Send me. Send me into their life. I want to make a difference. You can put your hands down. Anyone in here tonight with nobody looking around but me? No one looking around but me. Anyone here tonight would say, Pastor Chip, if I died tonight, I'm not sure that I would go and be with Jesus. I'm afraid I might go to hell. Anybody in here like that? Pastor Chip, I'm not sure. Would you just barely raise your hand and just look at me? Pastor Chip, I'm curious. I'm interested in giving my life to Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. Who else? Raise your hand. Just look at me. Just look at me. Raise your hand. Just look at me real quick. Make sure that I see you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Who else? Thank you so much. Who else? Raise your hand just barely. Pastor Chip, I'm not sure if I died tonight. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Who else? Raise your hand just barely. Make sure that I see you. Make sure that I see you. Raise your hand just barely. Make sure that I see you right now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hands up from side to side, y'all. Thank you. Right now, if you don't know for sure, and you've never really given your life to Jesus, saying, Jesus, man, I believe in you and I want to give you all of me. I believe that you died on the cross for my sin. I believe that you rose from the dead. Jesus, I want you to be the Lord of my life. Lead me. Jesus, I want to follow you. If you've done that, I want you to know that's cool. Like, we don't get saved over and over and over again. We only need to give our lives to Jesus once, and He does the rest. So I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I want to give you the opportunity, and I want you to know that if you need to give your life to Jesus tonight, for real, for the first time, that you can know for sure when you die, you'll be with Him forever. So right now, if that's you, and maybe you didn't even raise your hand, but if that's you, right now in your own heart, you can pray in your own words something like this. God, I believe that you're real. You can talk to God. You can tell Him that in your own words right here, right now. From your own heart, in your own words, you can tell God, God, I believe that Jesus died for my sin. And I pray that you would forgive me of all my sin. If you believe that, you can tell God that from your own heart, in your own words right now. From your own heart and your own words right now, you can tell Him, God, I believe that Jesus rose from the dead, that He's alive, that He's real, and I want a relationship with Him. God, I want to live my life for Him. I believe that He rose from the dead. Tell Him that right now in your own words, from your own heart. From your own heart and your own words, you can tell Him, God, I believe that Jesus is Lord. Like He's God. I want to live my life for Jesus. No one else, nothing else. I want to follow Jesus. I want to worship Him as my God. God, I want to follow Him as my Lord. I want my life to be all about Jesus. Call on Jesus to be the Lord of your life tonight. From your own heart, in your own words. With nobody looking around but me. If you prayed that tonight, would you grab a friend real quick and just go to the back? Or if your friend prayed that tonight, or maybe if you just need to talk to somebody, would you grab a friend right now and just go to the back? We've got some leaders that want to talk to you, that want to help you. Would you do that real quick? If you prayed that tonight for real, for the first time, if that was you, nobody looking around but me, nobody looking around, just go ahead and stand up, grab a friend, and go to the back real quick. Let's go. Let's go. Only going to give you a couple seconds. Stand up real quick and go to the back if that was you tonight. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your word. God, I pray that we would shine like stars in this world. God, I pray that we would have Christ-like actions and Christ-like attitudes so that people could see Jesus from our life. Father, I pray that we would be different. Father, I pray that we would live in a way that we want people to come up and say, how can I give my life for Jesus? How can I be happy like you? How can I have joy and hope and peace like you have? How can I live a life of not complaining but thankfulness, not arguing but a life of love? How can Jesus make a difference in my life? Father, I pray that we would be a student ministry who gets serious about the gospel and sharing it with other people, God, because we love you and we want people to know you. Father, we love you and we pray all these things in Jesus' name. And all God's people said.